After breaking up with Harrison, Victor, the prince, went to great lengths to pursue me. He planted gardenias, my favorite flowers, all over the city. Everyone said I had found a great man. But one day, I accidentally overheard him telling his friends that he pursued me just to disgust Harrison. He even joked about getting me pregnant and then dumping me, saying it would be so much fun. So, to make things even more interesting, I spent 2 months making him fall in love with me, only to dump him first. Later, I heard that the prince went crazy searching the entire city for me. Today is Victor's birthday. I was supposed to fly abroad to visit a friend and didn't have time to celebrate with him. But when my flight got delayed, I decided to skip the trip and surprise him at the karaoke bar where he was celebrating. When I arrived, I hadn't even opened the private room door when I heard Victor sneer. I only pursued Serena to disgust Harrison. I froze, forgetting to push the door open. Inside, there was laughter. Someone teased, "Vic, we couldn't tell. You treat her so well, like you'd pluck the stars from the sky for her." "Yeah," another chimed in. "Everyone thought you were genuinely in love with her." Victor had indeed treated me well. He pursued me openly for 2 years, planting gardenias across the city and even chartering 10 planes to confess his love. But what truly moved me was how he stayed by my side every night when I was sick, comforting me gently. If I didn't treat her well, how would she believe me? Victor's tone was lazy. "But after 3 years with her, I'm getting bored." "Are you planning to dump her?" someone asked. "Just dumping her would be too boring," Victor replied. "After all, she's someone Harrison really cared about. I need to do something more disgusting before I let her go. Maybe I'll get her pregnant and then kick her out. That would be so much fun." Someone couldn't help but cheer him on. "Wow, Vic, didn't know you were such a player." "This isn't being a player," Victor said nonchalantly. "This is knowing how to play. Women are just toys after all." My palms started sweating, turning cold, and then my entire body froze. The next second, with a loud thud, the cake I was holding fell to the ground. So, all the kindness Victor had shown me over the years was an act. Every night he stayed with me when I was at my most vulnerable and scared, it was all fake. The time we went hiking got caught in a storm, and he gave me the only food we had, saying he just wanted me to survive. That was fake too. He acted so convincingly that I fell for it completely, never doubting him. Suddenly, memories from the past flooded back. In college, Harrison, Victor, and I were classmates. Back then, I was withdrawn because of my illness, and no one wanted to befriend me. Only Harrison approached me, helped me with my studies, and played badminton with me. I thought he was the light in my life. Eventually, I mustered the courage to confess to him, and he accepted. We were together for 4 years until graduation. Then one day, I accidentally saw a chat on his phone. "Rena, hang in there. I'm almost done saving up. Soon I'll bring Serena over to give you her heart. Once you're healthy, we can get married." At that moment, I realized that our entire relationship had been a lie. Harrison had approached me, helped me, and spent time with me all because my heart was a match for his true love, Rena. He planned to take my heart for her. I broke up with him, but he wouldn't let me go and even tried to use force to keep me. That's when Victor appeared. He pulled me into his arms and coldly told Harrison, "She doesn't like you anymore. If you keep bothering her, I won't let you off." Then he took me away. That night, he bought me warm milk and sweet cake. He stroked my hair and looked at me deeply, saying, "Serena, as long as I'm here, no one will hurt you." He told me he had liked me for a long time and had been waiting for me. I was touched, but I didn't agree to be with him right away. After 2 years of persistence and helping me overcome my illness, I finally said yes when he chartered 10 planes to confess. We've been together for 3 years now. I was deceived by Harrison for 4 years, and now I've been deceived by Victor for 5. To say my heart doesn't ache would be a lie. It hurts so much that I want to die. Snapping back to reality, I realized the people inside were still talking. Vic, I think you should take it further. Propose to her, buy her the most expensive ring, and make her fall even deeper. That way, she'll willingly have your child. Then you can dump her and let her feel what it's like to fall from the highest high to the deepest low. Yeah, someone added. If Harrison finds out how you treated the woman he once loved, he'll go crazy. Victor chuckled lightly. Good idea. When she comes back, I'll plan the proposal. Through the door, I could already picture his indifferent, careless expression. I had spent 2 years slowly forgetting Harrison and falling in love with Victor. I thought it was a new beginning. But today, I realized I had only jumped from one abyss into an even darker one. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Afraid they'd hear me, I picked up the cake and left. I went back. The home I had shared with Victor for 3 years was filled with memories of us. We baked cakes together, cooked meals, played games. But now, all those beautiful memories felt like a noose tightening around me, over and over again. I couldn't understand what I had done wrong to deserve being toyed with by 2 men. Clenching my fists, I stared at a photo of Victor and me. In it, he wasn't looking at the camera but gazing at me with such tenderness. Victor, do you think it's fun to mess with me? Fine, I'll play along. I want to see what happens when you fall in love with me and I abandon you. Will you feel the same pain I'm feeling now? I threw the cake into the trash outside, watching it splatter into a mess. I thought it was just like my love for Victor, broken beyond repair. Tears fell along with it, but I quickly wiped them away and went back inside. I hurriedly stitched together a charm for Victor, deliberately pricking my finger to stain it with blood. I was setting a trap, one he'd walk into step by step, and then I'd make him hurt to his core. Victor didn't come home until 3 a.m. I was lying on the couch and woke up with a start when I heard him. He rushed over to hold me. You didn't go abroad? Why are you still here waiting for me? I rubbed my eyes and looked at his worried face. Look at him, acting so convincingly. Anyone would be fooled. So I decided to deceive him too. I lied. I wanted to wait for you at home and surprise you. As I spoke, I handed him the charm. Victor, I made this birthday gift for you myself. I hope it keeps you safe. But I also hope you'll never be happy again. Victor immediately noticed the blood on it. His brows furrowed as he grabbed my hand. What happened? Did you cut yourself? I quickly pulled my hand back. I accidentally pricked myself while making it. It doesn't hurt. I wanted him to know that while he and his friends were plotting how to trick me into leaving the country, I was making a charm for him. Sure enough, a flicker of guilt crossed his eyes. That's human nature, everyone feels guilt. He took out a bandage, carefully wrapped my finger, and hugged me tightly. Don't do things like this anymore. I don't want you to get hurt. Leaning against his chest, I could feel his heartbeat racing. But my own heart ached. Not only did I have to set a trap for him, but I also had to force myself not to love him. As usual, Victor carried me to bed and began unbuttoning my shirt, his eyes filled with desire. Rena, I don't want anything else. I just want you. Suddenly, I remembered what he had said earlier in the day. My stomach churned, and I felt so nauseous I wanted to vomit. Pushing him away, I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved. It was disgusting. Victor followed me in, his worried eyes fixed on me. Rena, are you feeling unwell? Let me take you to the hospital. I shook my head and forced a weak smile. It's nothing. Maybe I'm pregnant. I'll test it tomorrow. At those words, Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. Really? If you're pregnant, let's get married right away. Then we'll be a family of 3. Wouldn't that be wonderful? He said it so convincingly that, for a moment, I almost believed him. The next morning, Victor went out to buy a pregnancy test. He forgot his phone at home and it kept buzzing with messages. When he had pursued me, he'd given me his phone password, but I had never checked his phone before. Maybe he knew I wouldn't, so he never changed it. Curiosity got the better of me, and I unlocked it. The messages were from someone named Jasmine. Vic, I scraped my knee today. It hurts so much. When will you come see me again? I'm so bored alone in the villa. I made cookies for you. If you come today, I'll give them to you. I clicked on her profile picture and saw she had posted many photos of her and Victor together. Scrolling back, I found her first post from 10 years ago. She and Victor were wearing school uniforms, smiling at the camera. She was beaming, but Victor looked preoccupied. The caption read, "We graduated." Seeing this, I felt a suffocating pain in my chest. So Victor had a first love all along. How ridiculous. Why did I always end up with men like this? At that moment, Victor came back and caught me looking at his phone. "Rena, what are you looking at?" I quickly marked the messages as unread and switched to his photo gallery. Pretending nothing was wrong, I scrolled through pictures of us. There were many, including ones from when he confessed his feelings to me. In every photo, he was smiling so happily. "I just wanted to look at your photos. Oh, by the way, someone's been messaging you. I didn't open them. You should check." Victor froze for a moment, then walked over, took his phone, and hugged me tightly. "None of that matters. What matters is this." He held up the pregnancy test. "Go take it." I nodded and went to the bathroom. When I came out, I saw Victor typing furiously on his phone. As soon as he noticed me, he quickly locked it and looked at me expectantly. "Well, what's the result?" I held up the test, showing him. The pregnancy test stick in my hand was clear. I showed it to him and said, "Next time, if you try harder, I'll definitely have your child." But I could never let myself have his child. A flicker of disappointment crossed his eyes, but he still held me close, kissed my forehead, and said, "It's okay. Take your time." The next second, his phone buzzed again. His eyes flickered slightly before he said, "Rena, a friend needs me for something. I'll head out for a bit." I didn't suspect a thing. "All right," I replied. But as he stepped out the door, I slipped a small charm into his hand. "Take this with you. Be careful on the road." He chuckled, tapping my nose playfully. "Afraid something might happen to your future husband?" "If something happens to you, I wouldn't survive either," I said sincerely. "Vic, I love you so much." If it were the old me, I might have truly meant those words. But now, impossible. Victor's expression faltered slightly when he heard me. "Nothing will happen to me. I'll always be here with you. A man's words are nothing but lies." I've finally come to understand the meaning of that saying. As I watched him leave, I immediately followed him. In the most luxurious part of the city, he bought a villa for a woman named Jasmine. Through the garden fence, I saw the two of them painting plaster figurines together. She was focused on her work, and he was smiling. What a picture-perfect scene. They looked like they were made for each other. Suppressing the pain in my chest, I turned and left. I went straight to Victor's grandmother, Madame. Madame had a notoriously bad temper and had never liked Victor. He was an illegitimate child of the family and had never shown her any respect. This time, I brought homemade lemon bars with me. "Grandma, would you like to try these? They're really good," I said. She didn't even glance at the treats, instead fixing me with a sharp, penetrating gaze. "What do you want? Speak plainly." Madame had been in business for decades and was a master at reading people. I smiled and didn't bother hiding my intentions. "Grandma, I want you to give the heir position to Victor." She took a sip of tea, her movements unhurried. "Give me one good reason." "Victor is highly capable. If you give him this position, I'll donate my kidney for your grandson's transplant." Luke, the eldest grandson of the family, was suffering from kidney failure and urgently needed a healthy donor. My kidney happened to be a match. Luke was Madame's Achilles heel. In the end, she agreed. But she added one last question. "Is he worth all this effort from you?" I answered firmly, "He's worth it. Because I love him." I'll come to the house tomorrow for the surgery, I told her. The next morning, I sent Victor a recording from my phone, pretending to be Luke. I also sent a message. You've got yourself a great girlfriend. She does all the work and the air position just falls into your lap. If it weren't for my urgent need for a kidney, this would never have been your chance. I bet Victor would show up. From the very beginning, I never intended to help Victor secure the air position. This was all part of my plan. I wanted Victor to know how much I loved him, how much I had sacrificed for him. Even if the worst outcome was that he wouldn't love me back, I wanted him to feel guilty, so that when I left him, he'd never be able to forget me. I had said it before, I would lead Victor step by step into my trap. He could deceive me, but I could do the same. After setting everything in motion, I went to the family estate. The private doctor Madame had hired was already there. He led me into an empty room to prepare for the surgery. In my mind, I silently counted down. How long would it take for Victor to arrive? When I reached 60 seconds, the door was violently kicked open. I knew it. I had won the gamble. Victor stormed in, his face dark with fury. He grabbed the doctor by the collar. "Who the hell gave you permission to touch my girlfriend?" "Vic, why are you here?" I asked, feigning panic. He shoved the doctor aside and pulled me into a tight embrace, holding me as if he was afraid of losing me. "I don't want the air position. I don't want anything. I just want you," he declared in front of the entire family. Victor carried me out of the house and no one dared to stop him. After all, everyone knew Victor was a madman. He had once been locked in the basement by Madame. He broke out with his bare hands and killed the guard dog that had been watching him. Since then, Madame had never dared to provoke him, no matter how much she disapproved of him. Once we were in the car, Victor leaned over, his hands gripping my waist tightly. His kisses were hot and urgent, pressing down on me. At the last moment, I pushed against his chest. "No, stop." I looked at him and saw his eyes were slightly red. I knew today's events had been a major success for me, but instead of feeling happy, I felt a pang of sadness. If he hadn't lied to me, could we have been happy together forever? Instead of this endless cycle of scheming against each other? "You're not allowed to do things like this behind my back again," he said, his voice tinged with anger. "I just wanted to help you," I replied softly. He pressed his forehead against mine. "I told you, I don't want anything. I just want you. All you need to do is stay by my side. And you? Will you stay by my side forever?" We were so close I could feel his breath. I noticed his breathing quicken, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. For a split second, I thought that if he confessed everything to me, I might forgive him, but he didn't. He was still lying, still trying to manipulate me. "I will," he said. "Now give me a child." My heart shattered instantly. "I'm not feeling well today. Let's do it another day," I said. He noticed my unhappiness and suggested taking me on a trip the next day to cheer me up. The next morning, I received a friend request on a messaging app from an unknown contact. I immediately recognized the profile. It was Victor's first love, Jasmine. I accepted the request, and she wasted no time sending me a message. "Hi, I'm Jasmine. Vic's first love." Just one sentence, but it was dripping with pride. However, no matter how proud she was still the other woman now. "What do you want?" I replied. She seemed a bit flustered and angry. "Don't you understand what I'm saying? I'm Vic's first love. He even bought me a villa recently and spends the night with me every week. You'd better be smart and leave him." "I'm not leaving. I love him," I replied deliberately. I wanted Victor to see these messages one day. "Fine, just wait. I'll show you how much Vic loves me. Oh, by the way, aren't you two going on a trip today? Do you believe I can make one call and have him come to me instead?" I didn't respond to her. Instead, I glanced at Victor, who was packing our luggage. As expected, his phone buzzed a moment later. I knew it was Jasmine. He glanced at his phone and immediately turned to me. Rena, I might not be able to go with you. Something urgent came up at work. Can we reschedule for next week? It's fine. I wasn't really in the mood to go anyway, I replied nonchalantly. Go ahead, work is important. Hearing my response, he let out a sigh of relief, walked over, and kissed me. I even helped him straighten his tie. Be careful on your way. Don't forget your good luck charm, I said, as I always did. I wanted him to get used to these little gestures and words so that when I was gone, the memory of them would haunt him. Victor left shortly after. Not long after, I saw Jasmine's social media update. It was a photo of her and Victor at an amusement park, wearing matching couples t-shirts and riding a Ferris wheel together. The caption read, "They say couples who kiss at the top of the Ferris wheel will never part." I turned off my screen and sent Harrison a message asking to meet. After Harrison and I broke up years ago, his first love left him too. It turned out she didn't need his heart for herself but for her lover, and she had been deceiving him all along. When Harrison found out, he was filled with regret and had been pestering me to reconcile ever since. But Victor had always stood in the way. I deliberately chose a cafe owned by one of Victor's friends for my meeting with Harrison and sat in the most conspicuous spot. Harrison hadn't changed much over the years. He still looked the same as when he had saved me all those years ago. Rena, how's your depression? His first question was about my illness. If he hadn't brought it up, I might have forgotten about it. Years ago, I fell into depression after losing both my parents in a car accident. Though Victor had deceived me, his presence had helped me recover over time. It had been a long time since I'd had any episodes. I'm fine now, I said softly. It's been a while. Let's grab dinner and talk about getting back together, he said, loud enough for Victor's friend to overhear. I saw the friend immediately lower his head to send a message. I was certain it was to Victor. Victor's heart belonged to his first love, and Harrison was his sworn enemy. I had to use this method to provoke him and make him come back to me. Only then would I have a chance to make him fall for me. Harrison and I went to a Western restaurant. He looked at me with guilt written all over his face. I was wrong back then. But after you left, I realized I could never forget you. During those 4 years we spent together, I fell deeply in love with you. Rena, if you give me another chance, I'll treat you right. Before he could finish, Victor suddenly appeared behind him, grabbed him by the collar, and punched him in the face. Harrison, she's my girlfriend. Stop dreaming. Harrison wiped the blood from his mouth and glared at Victor. Do you even love Serena? Don't think I don't know. You're only with her to spite me. The world seemed to fall silent. Victor's face turned pale as he looked at me. Rena, I don't listen to him. Of course, I believed Harrison. I had known all along that Victor didn't truly love me. But now, I had to act. I had to pretend to be angry. I turned and walked away. Victor followed and grabbed my hand, pulling me into a tight embrace. Don't believe him. We've been together for so many years. How could I deceive you? Exactly. I wanted to ask how he could keep up the act for so long. Vic, have you ever thought about marrying me? I asked, wanting to provoke him further. Without hesitation, he replied, Of course. I've been planning it. Just wait. I'll give you a surprise. His friends had once suggested he propose to me, only to break my heart later, but he had never acted on it. Now I had to push him. I needed him to propose, to go through the motions, to feel the happiness of proposing. I needed him to fall deeper into the trap. Later, all of this would become a weapon to pierce his heart. On my birthday, I wrote a wish for Victor. I want to be proposed to on a snowy mountain, I told Victor with a smile. He chuckled knowingly. The next day, he and his friends took me on a road trip to the mountains. I knew Victor had severe altitude sickness, and this trip would show him who truly cared for him. I gave him my oxygen, supporting him step by step up the mountain, while his friends only looked out for themselves. Halfway up, Victor suddenly asked, You gave me all your oxygen. Aren't you afraid you'll pass out? I smiled at him. I'm not afraid. I just want you to be okay. Remember this, Victor. I'm the one who cares for you the most. His eyes softened, and he gripped my hand a little tighter. Finally, we reached the summit. Victor pulled out a ring and proposed. In that moment, his eyes seemed to hold the stars and the sea. Standing here, I feel like I'm on top of the world, he said. But I'll always look up to you. Will you marry me? Overwhelmed with emotion, I nodded. Yes, I will. He slipped an expensive ring onto my finger. But just as I was basking in the joy, someone I had arranged earlier appeared out of nowhere, wielding a knife. They lunged toward us, and I instinctively shielded Victor. The blade pierced my stomach, and pain surged through me as blood stained the pristine snow. My vision darkened, and I collapsed. Even in my final moments of consciousness, I whispered, Victor, as long as you're safe, that's all that matters. I had a dream. In it, Victor from a few years ago appeared. On every sleepless night when my illness flared up, he would show up with a warm, glowing star-shaped lamp, holding me tightly. Reina, don't be scared. I'm here. Back then, he must have truly loved me. But then I remembered, he had approached me from the start with ulterior motives. I should have let him go long ago, shouldn't I? In a haze, I overheard Victor's friends talking. Serena's absolutely crazy. She's not even afraid to die for Vic. That's exactly the reaction we wanted. The more she loves him, the more fun it'll be when he dumps her. Victor remained silent. One of his friends teased, Vic, you're not actually falling for her, are you? After a moment of hesitation, Victor replied, No. You guys go ahead. I need some time alone. But I knew, Victor had already fallen for me. I had given up my kidney for him, and I was even willing to give up my life. Yet, he was still hesitating. I needed to add one final dramatic touch. I forced my eyes open and saw Victor sitting nearby, his eyes red. When he noticed I was awake, he quickly grabbed my hand. You're awake. Are you feeling okay? Does anything hurt? I shook my head. I'm fine. Are you hurt? He shook his head too, his eyes glistening. Don't ever do something that reckless again. Losing too much blood in a place like that could have killed you. If we hadn't gotten you to the hospital in time, I might never have seen you again. I smiled faintly. It's okay. As long as you're all right, I'd do anything. Just then, I noticed the gardenias outside the window had started to bud, their faint fragrance wafting in. Victor, do you remember? Back when you were courting me, you had the entire city planted with gardenias. They're about to bloom. I want to marry you. When the flowers bloom, that'll be the day I leave you. The city will be filled with my presence. Will you miss me then? This time, Victor didn't mention anything about having children. He simply agreed to marry me. During my hospital stay, he busied himself with wedding preparations, customizing my gown, designing the rings, and more. For every detail, I made him show me. I wanted him to remember everything. As for the person I had arranged to attack us, I signed a forgiveness agreement, gave them some money, and sent them back to their hometown to start a better life. One day, an unexpected visitor came to the hospital. It was Jasmine. She had a sweet face, but her eyes brimmed with malice. Step by step, she approached me. Did you know Victor and I have known each other since high school? Did you know I was his first? Did you know I had an abortion for him? I didn't, I replied calmly. But I do know that I'm willing to give my life for Victor. Are you? I stared at her intently. She bit her lip, unable to say a word. Fear of death is human nature, and I was afraid too. But my heart was consumed by hatred. I loved Victor so much that I'd jump off a building for him if I had to. Jasmine, if Victor truly loved you, he wouldn't be marrying me. Her face turned pale with rage, and she clenched her fists. Just wait. On the wedding day, he'll leave you at the altar. Will he? I asked indifferently. I don't care anymore. All I need to know is that Victor loves me now. When the gardenias bloom, I'll leave and he'll never find me. In the 2 weeks leading up to my departure, I started recording videos every day. In one, I sat in the hospital, smiling bitterly. "Victor, I love you so much. But Jasmine said you'd leave me at the altar. I saw her social media. You seem to love her. I'll step aside for you two, so I'm leaving." In another, I visited the spot where Victor had confessed his love to me. "Victor, do you remember this place? You told me you loved me here, but now, it seems like you don't anymore." I even returned to the snowy mountain. The blood-stained snow was long gone. Is our love gone too? The day before I planned to leave was also the day of our wedding. That night, Victor clung to me tightly as we slept. "Reina, tomorrow you'll finally become. You're my bride now. From this day forward, you're my wife, Serena." I nestled into his arms, smiling. "Yes, Vic. Look at the sky tonight, so many stars. Just like all those nights you stayed by my side, there were always stars. Back then, my world suddenly had you in it. You said you'd never leave me. Vic, will you still marry me tomorrow as promised? You won't lie to me, will you?" A flicker of panic crossed his eyes. "Of course not. I've already fallen in love with you, Rena. I can't live without you." "Really? I'm glad you love me." Watching his eyelids slowly close, I pushed him away. Earlier, I had slipped a sleeping pill into the milk I gave him. I stood up, gathered all my belongings, and left. At dawn the next day, I boarded a flight to London. From the plane, I looked down at the city below, blanketed in white gardenias. I snapped a photo and sent it to Victor. "Vic, don't these flowers look just like the ones that bloomed the first year you planted them? Back then, you planted gardenias for me, and the whole city knew about it. That year, the flowers bloomed so vibrantly, as if your love for me was just as intense." I also sent him screenshots of my conversations with Jasmine. After doing all this, I removed my SIM card and tossed it into the trash. Goodbye, River City, the place that deceived me for 9 years. After landing, I went to see my former mentor. Back in school, I had always excelled academically, and she had often invited me to join her overseas projects. It was a chance to grow and earn money at the same time. When she saw me, she was surprised. "I thought you were married by now. Weren't you with that Victor guy?" I shook my head. "We broke up. From now on, I just want to focus on my career." Hearing this, she smiled approvingly. She herself was a staunch advocate of staying single, over 40 and still unmarried. I had once asked her why she didn't want to date or marry. She had replied, "Men's words are nothing but lies. I don't want to waste my time on them." At the time, I didn't understand her. I believed not all men were like that. But after being deceived by 2 men, I could no longer trust any of them. On my 3rd day in London, I saw entertainment news from back home. Victor's fiancée flees wedding. Prince Victor searches the entire city for her. I clicked on the article and saw a video of the wedding venue. Victor stood alone on the stage, his eyes red, looking utterly lost. Then there were clips of him frantically searching for me with a group of people, followed by his public plea online to find his wife. How laughable. Now I'm his wife, but back then, he didn't even treat me like a person. Just then, Harrison appeared in front of me. He was wearing a white shirt, looking exactly as he did back in school. "So, you've been deceiving Victor all along, Reina? Can you still reconsider now?" "No," I interrupted him firmly. "I, Serena, am not your toy. You don't get to play with me when you feel like it and toss me aside when you're done. I'm a person, a whole, complete person, with a heartbeat and breath. Harrison, don't come looking for me again. Don't make me lose all respect for you." With that, I turned and walked away. Afterward, I focused entirely on my projects with my mentor. 2 years later, I had become one of the top technical experts in the company. It felt amazing, relying on no one, being free from anyone's interference. Then, I saw news from back home again. Jasmine had attempted suicide by slitting her wrists. It was because Victor had exposed all her past scandals. She and Victor had indeed been in a relationship, but they broke up because Jasmine had cheated on him with multiple men. I suddenly understood why Victor didn't stay with her, but instead bought her a house and supported her. It was because Jasmine had wronged him. But now, none of this had anything to do with me. After finishing my work, I went to a small bar and ordered a drink. That's when I saw a man in a black coat walk in. It was Victor. He walked straight over and grabbed my arm. "Reina, I finally found you. Why did you?" I cut him off. "On your 28th birthday, I went to the karaoke bar. I heard everything you and your friends said." His face turned pale. "I'm sorry. I was just being foolish at the time. But later, I regretted it. I really fell in love with you. That's why I proposed to you. Why I wanted to marry you. Victor, I can never forget what you said back then. You said you were with me just to disgust Harrison. You said you wanted to get me pregnant and then dump me. You said, 'Stop. Please,'" he interrupted, his eyes red and filled with remorse. "At first, yes, that was my reason. I hated Harrison, and I wanted to spite him. But Serena, I truly fell in love with you later. I realized you were the only one who treated me well, the only one who was sincere. You were willing to do anything for me, even risk your life. I saw the videos and photos you sent me. I never did anything inappropriate with Jasmine. I was just playing around with her. Don't you know how much I've suffered since you left me? And don't you know how much it hurt me when you said you'd get me pregnant and then abandon me?" I stared at him intently. "Victor, we're done. Don't come looking for me again." As I spoke, I was about to leave, but he grabbed my hand. "You used to love me so much. How can you bear to abandon me now? Oh right, I forgot to tell you. You once said it was fun to toy with me. So, to make it even more fun, I set up a little trap for you too, to make you fall in love with me." His face was filled with shock. "So everything you did was just to deceive me?" "Not deceive exactly. Let's call it playing the game." I threw his own words back at him one by one, then yanked my hand away forcefully. "I'm Serena, not some doll for you and Harrison to play with." As I walked away, I heard Victor crying. "I really regret what I did back then. It was me who pushed you away with my own hands." I stepped out the door and looked at the dolls in the shop window. They reminded me so much of who I used to be. In that moment, I only wanted to tell myself, I will never be anyone's doll again. I will be like the climbing vine that blooms proudly on high walls. My world should revolve around me. A free soul will never be trapped by thorns. A self-sustaining light will never be extinguished.